Jose Luiz Morales with Remax Gold Coast Realtors and the Morales Group. It's 1 o'clock already. I'm doing a live interview with investor, real estate professional, and good friend Fernando Garcia. He's based out of the San Fernando Valley. Fernando, you want to say hi to the people on Facebook?
How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Oh, everybody's doing good.
Good. So I wanted to bring Fernando on the show because I met Fernando several years back. Right now, his son's my best friend. And aside from Fernando, I really don't know that many people that flip as many properties as they have, or that they have the experience in flipping properties as they do. So I wanted to do a live interview and educate everybody on how to flip properties. I hear this all the time. People are like, hey, I've inherited some money, I sold my property, I want to get into flipping properties, but a lot of the times the people don't know how to do it. So, Fernando, would you mind introducing yourselves to the consumers out there watching you?
Sure. Again, it's Fernando Garcia. I work with Park Regency Realty, in the business for about 19 years, flipping properties since when the market took a dive, 2008, and it's been an experience. It's fun.
Yeah, okay. So been flipping properties for quite a bit. So how did you get into flipping properties?
Well, when I got into the business, I actually got into the business because I wanted to flip properties. I didn't know how, so I started like most agents do, just buying and selling, helping buyers, helping sellers, and then I started liking the business, so I got all into it, and did great as a regular real estate agent, helping buyers, helping sellers, and I kind of forgot about my goal about flipping properties. Again, that's actually why I went into the business, trying to buy a property here and there. With very limited amount of money, but you see those shows that you can buy a home with zero down and all that stuff. So I got suckered in with that, but I guess it works. I mean, I just never did it. But bottom line is, I forgot all about that until the market took a dive, and then I had no other choice but to go back into that and say, well, maybe flipping will work. And I got into my first property, and it was nerve-wracking and challenging and scary. And even though I knew the market pretty well, and I knew what would sell and what needed to be done to sell a home, I was nervous. But I went ahead and did my first one, and after that, it was great.
Yeah. So tell us about your first property. Like, how did you find it? How much money did you put into it? What did you end up selling it for? Do you mind going into, if you remember?
I think the first one was either in Arleta or Sun Valley. I think it was Sun Valley. I did one in Sun Valley with a partner of mine, and he was flipping first. Basically he never really did much real estate. I think he did loans, and then he got into flipping, and he came around and asked for some help on some listings that he had. I helped him with that, and then he showed me a little bit about the flipping business. So we went and bought a house in Sun Valley as an auction, and bought it cheap. I think we bought it for, I think it was like $145, $135, somewhere around there. Went to the courthouse. You know how you see sometimes on the multiple listing service where it says, home will go on auction on this date. You show up to the house on that date at that time, and then people make bids. Your bid is good there, but it's not final till you go to court. So, a couple people went over there at the house and made a bid. They won the bid. They went to court to confirm, but at that time, the court says, okay, anyone else want to make a bid? And we got to make a bid at, I think, 5 or 10% over the last bid. And there was several of us there, and we started bidding, and it went, I think, from 85, 90,000 to 135, 145. And that was the first house I bought. When we got there, I did my homework. I kind of checked it out and knew what I was getting into, but it was a lot worse than I thought once we were able to get in, because the only day that it was open, it was that one day when it went on auction, and after that it was closed, and it was all plywooded, so you couldn't really get inside. Once we got the property and were able to access it, man, it was bad. There was cats dead and rats and all that stuff. It stunk. I thought we had to knock it down completely.
Really?
That's bad. Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I was talking to my partner. I go, man, are you sure you can do this? I think we need to knock this thing down to the ground and build it back up. It's just I don't see how we can put this thing together. So, he was a great help. He was in construction and had a lot of experience flipping properties, and he helped me through that one. And actually, we didn't do bad. I think we spent 60, 70,000 on it. And after all the expenses and everything that was done, we made about 100,000 on it. So it was a really good flip. Yeah.
Good for you, man. So essentially, like, what ended up happening is you ended up having a mentor, somebody who basically had previous experience with flips. Obviously, you already knew the marketplace, but his experience as well was really helpful, at least in the first couple of ones, I would imagine so.
Yeah, I have to say that if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I would have got in. And if I did get in, I probably would have made a lot of mistakes. And I probably would have had a couple losses here and there because I really didn't know what I was doing. Where because I started with him and he was such a good friend that was able to help me out with all that, I started with my right foot. You know, I started winning, right? The first house, and ever since then, thank God, knock on wood, we haven't lost on any. Yeah. We've almost broken even on some and made a little bit on others, but for the most part, it's been well. And it was all because he taught me the right way of doing it.
Yeah, and I remember one time, like, I asked you, like, to go take a look at a property for me, and I was excited. I've never done a flip. And I was like, man, this is so good, this, and this. You can make all kinds of money, and you look at it, you're like, well, look, you're not taking a look at how much it's going to cost to throw this away. You're not taking a look at this. You're not going to take a look at that. And you mentioned to me something important. You said, you don't want to flip a property just to flip it. You want to flip a property if you're going to be able to make a profit. And if not, sometimes it doesn't make sense to flip the property, right?
Of course. I mean, we're all in this to win. And remember, there's a liability issue on this thing. So if you flip a property for very little or nothing at all just because you want experience, that thing follows you around for a while. You know, it's there. You worked on it. You touched it. Your workers touched it. And the people that buy it, even though they buy it as is and you have the disclosures and all that, you know, they can sue you for anything, as you well know. So you don't want to take a chance and just do it for a few $1,000s. Make it worth your while. And of course, they're hard to find, but take your time, do it right, and have it be rewarding. And that way, if something does happen, at least you say, well, you know, I made some money and I had to pay to get out of the issue, the problem, but at the end, I'm okay. Versus making no money or very little money and then you spend 20 grand trying to get out of the trouble you got into, then you really are going to hate the business. You're going to not want to do this again.
Yeah. And where are you finding most of your transactions? Are you finding most of your transactions like the first one, like at the courthouse or an auction? Or are you finding them mostly on the MLS? Or do you even have like clients that you meet with directly that want cash deals?
We find them everywhere. I mean, you just never know where they're going to come. I got agents that I've been working with for years that still call me when they have a short sale. I have agents that are still calling me that have bank-owned properties. You know, believe it or not, there's still some agents out there that get them, and they still call me. I have, a farm that I worked very hard many years ago, and I still send material out there, and people there call me and say, you know, my neighbor wants to sell, or I got to get out of here, or whatever, that they have a valuable property that to them, this is all it's worth. And really, that's all it's worth in the condition that it's in. But I look at the value after I do what I do, what it's going to be worth. And, I buy properties through that vehicle as well. So past clients, center of influence, my farm, and agents that have short sales or foreclosures.
And I think that's really important because one of the things that I notice is that sometimes investors are just looking for that one deal, but in reality, like this flipping business, it's about reputation, right? I mean, like there's certain investors that agents, us as agents, we like to work with because once they commit to something or once they say something, they're actually going to do it and they're actually going to perform on it. So how important is reputation, Fernando, in the flipping business? Because
it's everything. I mean, it's everything. For example, you're an agent. I'm an agent. So if I'm working with someone, I work with investors. I sell properties to them as well. I can't pick up everything. I'm not in all the price areas. In other words, I wouldn't buy $1 million home even if it looks good. I mean, I guess if it looks great and it's a no-brainer, I will get into it. But I don't get into the $1 million market. I don't know it as well. I'm a little nervous about it. And so I flip those, or I take those deals and I pass them over to guys that know that market. And so if I have investors that buy in that market, I got selective investors that I like to work with because I know that they're not a pain in the butt. If they say they're going to move forward, they do. I know they have the funds. I know they have the means. I know they have the knowledge, and it's just straight up in and out. Versus working with other investors that have the reputation of always backing out, always coming out with excuses or reasons why we should drop the price, having to renegotiate in the middle of the transaction or at the very end. It's just a nightmare, just like a regular buyer. You have your regular buyers that are easy to deal with. They follow your instructions and they do everything you ask them to because you're the professional. And the investors do the same. They figure, look, this guy's a professional. He brings me good deals. I'm not going to let him down. Exactly. Versus the other guys that don't really care for you and they don't really care about your reputation or they don't care to do business with you ever again. And so they throw their reputation out the window as well.
Have you ever closed a deal because you said that you were going to close it, even in the end that you realized that you didn't make that much money? Like, has that ever happened to you?
I have, and not too many times, but I have 2 or 3 times I had to go through a deal that I didn't really like at the end. And I only go through the deals that I might have made a mistake on myself. In other words, if you didn't disclose something that you knew, or the client or someone that's in the deal doesn't disclose something to me that they know, and then they throw it in at the end at me at the very end, and it's going to be detrimental, I will back out on you because you gave me information that you would help. Versus me going out and saying, I'll buy it, here's the deal, here's the property, here's the amount. And then I don't do my due diligence before I make you the offer. And then I find out, I go, oh, shoot, I didn't realize all the plumbing was bad, electrical, the roof. I didn't take into consideration all these things. So, I was going to make 50, now I'm going to make 15. I'll go through it because of my reputation and because I expect to get more deals from you and make up the difference on the next one versus ruin my reputation with you at that deal just because I'm not going to make as much. But then how many deals do I lose in the future?
Exactly. Because I would imagine that, like, hey, you do a good job for, like, let's say that I bring you a deal, you do a good job for me, I might refer you to another agent out there that says, hey, I've got another flip property, and it happens, and before you know it, you've built, like, a network of people that know you, like you, trust you, respect you, and that know that you're going to perform. So essentially, it leads to a lot more business than always having to chase that one deal, always just looking for the next one property. It leads to something more sustainable, right?
Yeah. I mean, like in everything else, reputation is everything. You as a regular real estate agent, your reputation's on the line. Mm-hmm. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And sometimes it hurts, sometimes it costs you, but you still go through with it just because it's your name. It's Jose Luiz Morales that is going to end up looking good or looking terrible at the end versus your pocket. I mean, your pocket, you put money in there, you take money out, you win, you lose, but Jose Luiz Morales has a reputation to keep, so you keep it with that client, even though it might hurt. The same thing with me. If I tell you I'm going to go through with it, I'm going to go through with it unless you hit something, not necessarily you, but whoever I'm working with, you hit something purposely or the client did, then I have a way out. Then it's different because they broke it, not me. But again, reputation's everything.
So you said something important, like that the $1 million is not really your ideal flip. Like, why is that? Like, is there a certain price point that you like to stay at? What's an ideal flip for you? Like, some.
I know investors that are great at the higher end stuff because that's what they work, that's what they're around, and they know when they have gold in their hands. Coal or gold, or may look like coal, and it is gold. In other words, I cannot tell the difference in the higher end, and I may think that I do. I don't want to get a big head and think that that I know the areas that I don't, and get into someone else's area that they know very well, and I'll get my teeth kicked in. And that's such a huge amount of money that I use my investors' money for most of these transactions, and I don't want to put their money at risk. So I stay where I know, not necessarily where I'm comfortable, but where I know that if I take your money and I invest it, I want to invest it in the neighborhood, in the area that I know how to work. I know what needs to be done. I know what kind of quality work needs to be done. I even know the color and schemes and materials that need to be used for that particular area. And it works. And it's a proven track record that it works. versus I go into $1 million, $2 million home area. I wouldn't even know where to start as far as materials. And if I do a price reduction, most cases, you do a price reduction of $100, $200, $300,000 in order to get the property moved. So if my profit margin was $200,000, $300,000, and my first price reduction is gone. Yeah. Then after that, I do another $200, $300. Now it's coming out of our pocket. So it's a little more dangerous than working in the neighborhoods that we're comfortable with. We reduce it $5,000. Oh well, so we lost it by 5,000 or 10,000. We missed it.
So let me ask you, like, what if somebody doesn't have any money, but they've got a transaction? Like, let's say that they find somebody who's looking to sell a property and they want to sell it in cash, or they want to sell it as soon as possible. Like, where can these people get financing? Like, would you recommend partnering up with somebody that maybe has the money and going that direction, or would you recommend hard money loan, or what would you recommend in a situation like that?
Well, it's case by case, but what I would strongly suggest is if anybody wants to get into the flipping business, you need a crew. You need to know who's going to be doing the job. That's the main thing. Because, I mean, let's say that I know nothing about the flipping business, and I'm sitting here and I see a house that I think may be a good deal, and then I got an uncle that's a millionaire and he wants to invest, or just say, you know what, my money's not doing that well at the bank or in the stocks. Here's $500,000. Go ahead and buy something. It's not my money, and I see a good property, and I'm thinking, well, there's the money. Let me try it. Yeah, the deal could be a good deal to begin with, but it'll turn ugly real fast if you don't know what you're doing and if you don't have the right people to do it with. Because that same house that someone like myself can turn around with 15, 20, 30,000, that same house in the wrong hands could be $100,000 job. Just like that. I've seen it. I give them deals. I give them deals to people that I decided not to take, not necessarily because they were not good deals, but they were not as good as the other ones I had, and I only had a limited amount of money, so I let those go to other people. And then people don't have the people, the workers, they don't have the experience, and then they come back and say, hey man, this thing didn't work out. I look at the numbers, I go, holy Jesus, how'd you spend $90,000? Well, I'm like, oh my God. So it's knowing the right people and knowing that the people do a good job, because you could also hire someone to do it real cheaply, and then you end up having to do the job 2 or 3 times because it's done wrong, or you sell it that way and then you have a lawsuit in your hands.
Yeah. So how important is it? I mean, where would you find the right team, Fernando? Like, let's say that I'm looking to flip a property, and I don't know a good contractor. I don't know a handyman or somebody like that. Like, where could I find somebody that is reputable and somebody that would not turn a $15,000 project into a $90,000 project?
It's hard to do, and you have to take your time and do your homework. Go out there, go look at job sites, go meet the people, and more than anything, the character. You meet the people, you look them straight in the eye, and you kind of get a feel for them. It just depends. If you're a good judgment of character, you'll be able to decide right away when you meet the people, shake their hand, look them in the eye, look at the job, and you ask a couple questions. You'll know, hey, you know what? I think this guy is worth taking a chance with, and let's start working on a project. Versus someone that you just don't feel it's the right person, you better not do it, because it could end up costing a lot of money if that person doesn't have character, doesn't have like you and I were talking about principles, to where they say, look, we're going to start this job, it's going to cost this much, and it's going to take this long, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it done. If they're not that type of person, you're asking for trouble, because that job will take 2-3 times as long, and it'll cost you 2 or 3 times as much.
Yeah. So essentially, you want somebody, a character, somebody that's not going to turn into $15,000. Could you find these people, let's say, standing outside a Home Depot? Do you look on Yelp?
No, what happens? You got to find your head guy. See, the head guy will go out and get people at Home Depot, or get people at wherever it is that they find them. Those guys are assistants or helpers. But the main guy is a guy that has to know what he's doing. He has to know how it's done, and he has to know how to deliver and where to buy all these materials. He runs the job for you. So if you find that head guy, then the rest of the guys really doesn't matter, as long as you have a good leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And somebody asked, do you get a first mortgage, or do you get a line of credit? Like, when you work with when you say you're an investor, do you guys have some sort of agreement, or like what is that? Do they usually put a first mortgage on the property, or how does that typically work?
Well, the investors that I work with, I've been working with them for many years, and so at first we did it just by trust, and everything basically went under my name, and they just trusted that I would do it right.
Yeah.
Then after a while, we went and opened up some LLCs, and now we put the property under that LLC. Both of our names are on there, and then we just go from there. Where the money comes from, most of these people have the cash of their own, and they either get equity lines, or they made money and they have saved money, or whatever it is, however it is that they get it. And then there's other people, or when I don't use investor, then I'll go to a hard money lender, and I put up 20-30%, and the hard money puts in the rest.
Yeah. Can it get risky with hard money?
It can get expensive. So, I mean, risk is based on, I think I told you this before, you make the money on the property when you buy it, not when you sell it. So you buy it right, you're going to make money. But you also can lose the profit or a large portion of it by getting the wrong hard money lender, or taking way too long to finish the project, because the hard money lenders, that's why they call them shark. I mean, they're, because they're out there to take a big, huge bite out of your profit. So, I don't like using them, but when there's no other options, we do. And 10-12% interest rate. So every month it's costing you $3,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 to hold that loan, and then it costs you maybe 2.5 points to do the paperwork on it. So it gets expensive.
How long does it usually take to do a flip?
It takes me an average of 30 days, sometimes 15, 20, sometimes 30. The last one you and I did took me probably 2 weeks to finish it. Then it took me another week to do details and minor stuff, and another week to put it on the market with all the cleaning and all that stuff. So it takes about a month. But it just depends on how much work needs to be done on the home.
Yeah. Okay. And I know that sometimes people imagine that the more work a property needs, the better. Like the more work that a property needs, the more the profit. Are those generally the most profitable properties for you, or are there ones where maybe they just need a little bit of cosmetic work and need a little bit of lipstick, and you can make the same or more money?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends. Sometimes if you're able to pick up a house that doesn't need a lot of work, you may not be making that huge amount, but you're spending a lot less than you normally would. So it kind of works the same way. You pay more for the house, but you spend less, and then you sell it for a little less than you normally would. But again, you invested less into it, so you profit almost the same. I tend to believe, or my experience shows that if I buy a house that needs a lot of work, usually I make a little more money, because all the investors that are competing for the same property, we have a price point that we want to see. We don't want to go over. In other words, we look at the home and go, man, it needs 100,000, so I'll pay 200. And we're all about pretty close, because all of us that know what we're doing, we're going to bid around the same, because it's going to cost us about the same. And so sometimes, I'll bid $5,000 more just to take the property, and then I try to save $5,000 and work that might not necessarily need to be done. In other words, sometimes it really doesn't need a roof. It looks bad, but it doesn't need a roof because it's not leaking, and I'm going to sell it at a price that it doesn't require a roof, or the buyer says, hey, you know what, it doesn't leak, it looks fine. It looks a little weathered, but it'll do the job, and they'll buy it for the price that I need or I want. And so I pay a little more because I don't think I'm going to do a roof. Where the other investor says, no, I have to have a roof, so I have to pay a little less because I got to spend $8,000 on that roof. So those are the differences.
So a lot of it comes down to judgment as well too, having experience under your belt, and being able to determine what it's going to take to get it up to selling standard. And I would imagine that if maybe they're not your partner, having a real estate agent that understands those sorts of things is helpful as well too. Somebody that maybe says, hey, you don't have to put a roof on the property. All we would have to do is focus on the kitchen, focus on the flooring, focus on the bathrooms, and we would make this amount of money, right?
That's right. I mean, the main thing is is finding that special edge. You know, you're an investor, let's say, and I'm an investor. We walk into the exact same house. If I can find that little edge because I know that area, again, let's say you come from Beverly Hills, you go look a bit at a house at Pacoima. You're going to have a different idea of what you need to do to that house to sell it versus me that I work in Pacoima all day long and I know my people in Pacoima and I know what they want and I know what they like. So you come in and you go, you know, this house is only worth 200 to me because, you know, I got to paint this, do this, and the house is never going to look that great. So 200 is my max. I go in there and I say, you know, I'll pay 225 because all I have to do is open up that wall, knock this thing out, open it here, and now it's going to look like $1 million. They may not see that because they don't walk into those homes that you and I walk in every day. So where I wouldn't know what to do in that Beverly Hills home when I walk in, I wouldn't know what that clientele wants over there. So I wouldn't know what to do. So I might not bid as high as he would in Beverly Hills, and vice versa for Pacoima, Lira, Silma, whatever.
So essentially, if someone wants to begin flipping properties, could they get experience by taking a look at properties, like, for example, before they get sold to the investor, and then taking a look at the repairs after the investor does it? Like, maybe like if they had the opportunity of seeing the property before it gets flipped and after it gets flipped, could they get experience by, would you recommend that they preview a few properties if it's their first time just to see what other investors in the area are doing?
Definitely. That's, again, I met my partner a while ago when he was flipping, and I follow his direction. But before then, I was already looking into it, and I was going in and looking at homes that it was like playing the stock market. You look at the stock market and you go, man, if I had money or if I had the guts, I would buy this and this and this. And then you go back a few days later and go, damn, if I would have bought it. Yeah. So that's what I was doing. I would look at a house. I go, if I had money or if I had the guts, I would buy this home. And I bet you it would go for this much. And I go back in the MLS and go, yep, it went for that much. Okay, if I would have bought it, this is what I've done to the house. And then you go back and go, man, that's exactly what they did. Oh, you know what? I didn't think of that. That's a good idea. And you know what? I think it's going to go for this much. Shit, it went for that and more. So, you know, I played images in my mind, ideas in my mind of what would happen. And then I would go back and double check and go, yep, it happened. Or you know what? It happened, but they also did this. That's a good note to take. So I would take notes. And then I kept playing with that. It was a fantasy. And then once I got into it, then I had a little more experience because I had done it in my head.
So essentially, you can learn from watching other investors in your marketplace. You can see what other investors are doing successfully and learn from what they're doing. Because sometimes when you go into certain neighborhoods, a lot of the floor plans are the same. So you get to learn, like I know in South Oxnard, there's a floor plan where there's a big hallway, or there's a big closet in the middle of the hallway. And I've seen where investors remove that closet, and all of a sudden the hallway looks 2-3 times bigger, and it makes the property look a lot better. So essentially, you can learn from watching what other investors are doing and kind of getting familiar without risking your money at the beginning, right?
That's right.
So somebody asked if you would recommend starting with a partner so that you don't take such a big loss in the beginning, since we are not experienced. What would you recommend for somebody like that maybe is not as experienced and they want to get into the flipping business?
Again, I would highly recommend that they play make believe. In other words, go out there and say, okay, if I'll buy this home. You know, give yourself 2-3 months to practice.
Do some
go out and look at 5-6 homes that you think you would have bought, and then you say, okay, I would have paid this much. This is my highest amount I would have paid, and then I would do this and this and this to the home. Take pictures. You know, you're a realtor. You have the Supra. You can go in there, preview the home, take pictures, get some drawings going. Visualize them in your mind, what you would like them to see, what you would like the house to look like, and then go back and you'll be amazed on how close you get that home to what the investor actually did. And then look at what they sold for and how long it took to sell. That way you get a feel and you go, you know what, I can do this. I've done it 5-6 times in my mind and I got it right every time. Or I got it wrong. What am I doing wrong? And then you call the investor and go, hey man, look, I've been looking to try to get into this business. I was thinking that this home should have gone for this or should have done that. Some investors are great and they'll share their information with you, and some are not. But disregard those and keep on going. Call someone like myself or many others are out there and they'll share information. It's out there. It's easy, and we want to see people succeed at this. It's not a secret, and role play it in your mind for a little bit. Get good at it in your mind, fantasy dollars, and then go out there and do it. And yes, do it with a partner if you can, because at least that way you split the risk.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good. And is there a certain return that you look for in your flips before you actually move forward and do a flip property?
Rule of thumb for me is about 20% of my invested money, including the repairs. So let's say it's 100,000 plus 20 for repairs, 120. So I want 20% return on my 120,000. I'm looking for that. Obviously, there's no 120,000, and I really don't get into that, like the real low end stuff. For example, I get a lot of calls from agents in Palmdale and Lancaster that say they have a good deal out there, and it looks like a good deal. But look, let's say you buy a $120,000 home, $150,000 home. Uh-huh. The repairs and the cost and the materials is exactly the same as if it was over here in Silmar, let's say, or in Oxnard. So you're going to spend 50 grand. So if you buy a house for 120, you're going to spend 50 to fix it. You're not 170. But the maximum you can get in Palmdale, Lancaster for that same house that you put 50 grand in might be 210 or 220. But you're already at 170 plus commissions, so there's really not much there. So even though it might look like a good deal, it's not. Where here, if you buy a property, let's say for 350, and you put 50 in it, you're at 400. Chances are, depending on the area, you can get 480, 500, 510, 520 for it. Mm-hmm. And so when you do the math, you'll get your 20% return.
Yeah. Okay. And when somebody's going into a property, and obviously like a lot of it has to do like analyzing repairs and kind of seeing what something's going to cost. If they don't, are there rule of thumbs? Like for example, like let's say, can you estimate like a certain amount for the kitchen in your head, like a certain amount for flooring, a certain amount for windows, a certain amount for a bathroom? Like what do those numbers look like? And I think this is where you can find value. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I just do some real rough numbers, and they're not that accurate, but it gives you a real ballpark. Let's say like back in the day when I started doing flips, I would buy a lot in auction. I needed to make a decision right there and then. I would have a guy out at the courthouse making bids, and I was at the house looking at it to see how much we should bid. So the guy would tell me, hey, it's up to 300,000 now. It started at 240, 300. Is it a go? Well, right there and then I would look at it and say, okay, 5 for the kitchen, 5 for paint in and out, 5,000 for all the flooring, whatever may need. 5 for electrical, 7,000-8,000 for air conditioning. So I would almost throw 5 at everything. The bathrooms usually are about $2,500 each, so 5,000 when I had 2 bathrooms. So if you do all that, then you get a ballpark idea right away. You say 20, 25, 30,000 for this house. Let's do it. So go ahead and bid this much. Then when it's all said and done, you'll see that it's very close. Sometimes 3,500, 4,500. But if you put 5 on it, then you're safe. Try to always put a little more than whatever you think it is, so that way you're safe. Roof, 5,000 normally. Put 7,500, just because you don't know if you need to replace plywood or other issues wrong with the house.
Okay, so overestimate a little bit, but essentially because when it comes to these properties, sometimes you have to make decisions really quickly, right? You have to be on it, because if you're not on it, you're going up against another investor who maybe has more experience and can say 5 for the kitchen, $2,500 for each bathroom, 5,000 for the flooring, 5,000 for paint in and out. They've already calculated in their head, meaning they can make a decision faster and they can move on it. Is there a risk to buying at auction, Fernando? Like in front of the courthouse? Like what are some of the risks? Like if somebody has 500,000 and they want to go buy a property at the courthouse, is there more risk there than there is?
Well, look, I don't know. Some of you guys might have seen those shows. I think it's where they buy storages or something like that. It's kind of like the same. There's sharks there. There's people that have a lot of experience buying those storages. And when they see a newbie, they'll try to kick his butt by overbidding him and having him buy something that he's going to lose his butt off so that he can get the hell out of there. They'll do that to you at the courthouse. There's a handful of guys that are, they're great at what they do. They have a lot of money and a lot of experience, and they see a guppy come in and they signal each other and they try to bid the property up to get you to pay more for it, get you out of there, have you lose your ass, and you never come back. So that's the biggest risk that you're playing against some big dogs over there, big money. And if you don't know what you're doing, and you don't do your homework, and you don't check the prelim and title, you have to have a good title rep to make sure they check on everything real fast before you make a bid, because those sales are final, and you either lose your deposit or you bought a home that there's just nothing there. You know, the house, sometimes the house is burnt to the ground, and you don't know because you're buying all this real quick. So you have to have someone out there, and you yourself at the courthouse, and you're making bids like crazy. And yes, there's a much higher risk of making a mistake there. So I would suggest to anyone that wants to start, do it with a property that either you were door knocking and you found, someone referred you to, or an MLS finding, something like that. But don't go to the courthouse for your first one.
There's some sharks at the courthouse. Nice. Yeah. Right. And not only that, but I've heard about the same thing too, Fernando. I've heard about, like, the newbie comes in, the people know that, let's say the property that they're bidding on, it's not a first trust deed. Let's say it's a second trust deed. And the people know, and they'll bid up the price and get them engaged. The guy bought a second trust deed, and essentially he bought nothing, because in order for him to have something is he has to pay off the first trust deed. And sometimes they don't know that because their title rep didn't tell them, or they didn't do enough research to know that they're bidding on a second trust deed. I've also seen it where an investor has told another guy, hey, I wouldn't bid on that property because you're bidding on a second trust deed. So essentially, when it comes to the courthouse, you have to be extra careful. Not only are there people that may get you to bid your price up and then unload an unprofitable property so that you don't come back, but you can be bidding on a second lien on a property, and you lost all your money right then and there.
Yeah, because you're buying it with everything. It comes with all the baggage.
With tenants and everything, right?
Yeah, tenants, everything. But I mean, if there's judgments, liens, all kinds of stuff on that property, you're buying it with the whole thing. So you may think, this house is worth $500,000. All dilapidated is worth $500. I bought it for $400. I got a deal. Yeah, but it came in with $150,000 worth of baggage. So you actually bought it for $550. So, if you don't know what you're doing, I say stay away from it. Get familiar with it. Get a good team behind you, someone that's going to back you up by verifying a lot of the information. Yeah. And then go for that. But there's so many other deals out here you can work on first, get good at that, and then go into the courthouse.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the things that can go wrong when flipping a property, like for example, like foundation issues? Is that something that structural issues? Are those things that sometimes get overseen? I've heard of people like I remember there was a property, I think, that Angel was telling me about, that you said, I don't know, something's weird about this property, and you didn't bid on it, and then someone else that we knew ended up buying it, and then it ended up having like foundation issues or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes with experience, and believe me, I don't know it all, and I'm not a contractor, and I'm not claiming to be one, but there's certain things that when you have enough experience and you walk into enough homes, you get a feel for. So, for example, you walk into a house and you're slamming doors open and closed, and the jambs, everything about those doors is crooked. So it's not that someone installed the door incorrectly, more than likely. It's probably that there's something wrong with the foundation and the house is leaning, because every house has a gap almost in the same area for every door. Mm-hmm. So I just had that feeling when I went over, when I was walking in, I saw this huge crack going into the garage, and then leading into the living area and across the home into the bedrooms. And it didn't look like much, but it started small and it just got bigger. I couldn't tell that at the time. You had to remove carpet and all that. But when I saw those doors, I go, you know what? It's already a little bit high. I'm already feeling uneasy and uncomfortable. Let's just let this one go. A deal's available every day. It comes up every day. We don't have to buy this one. Mm-hmm. So I walked away. And then someone else bought it, and I think Angel knew them or whatever, and he found out later that there was just a bunch of problems with the house, and it came out to about $50,000-$60,000 worth of foundation repairs. It was just one of those that I got away from, but is the type that you need to pay attention to when you're barely starting. Mm-hmm. You want to pay attention to that, not just the cosmetic, carpet paint, and air conditioning and plumbing. That's easy. What about the stuff that's hiding? Let's pay attention to that more carefully than just your cosmetic stuff, moving a wall here and there, replacing the carpets or changing kitchen cabinets, that's fine. It's the other stuff that is going to get you in trouble because that's going to cost you thousands of dollars. And sometimes it's not even repairable. Sometimes they want it knocked down.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah. Thank you. Because I know that's that we look at flips and we look at it, oh my God, there's so much opportunity, but there's also so much that can go wrong. I mean, if you don't, it sounds like if you don't have the right crew doing the repairs for you, your $15,000 repairs can go into $80,000, $90,000. If for some reason you don't see something that is dramatically wrong with the property, like a foundation issue or a structural issue, then you're pretty much putting yourself in a position where you may not be making money, and in essence, you may be even losing money on the property.
Yeah, it's again, it's all about buying it right. If you make money when you buy. So if you buy it right, you're gonna be fine. But also do your homework on that. And the special stuff where it's going to cost you thousands of dollars, and that mainly is structural foundation, roof, electrical, and plumbing. Those things are where you spend most of your money. The bathrooms, kitchens, and flooring and carpet and paint, that's you spend about 20 grand on all that.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff that costs you 40, 50, 60,000 if you're not careful.
Yeah. Okay. And the last question, Fernando, that I'm going to ask you is, how did you determine an offering price? Like, is there a formula? Like, somebody wants to make an offer on a property. Like, what should they look at? Do you work backwards? See how much you can sell it for, how much it's going to cost, how much real estate commissions are going to be, how much profit you need, or how do you typically do that, Fernando?
Yeah, exactly. You got it right. You work backwards. You look at today's market. You kind of get an idea where it might go. Most of the time, I always think a little negative. I think the market might drop 10%, and so I take 10% right off the top, 500,000, 10% off of that. You know, what are you looking at? About 450.
450, yeah.
Yeah, so you got 450, and then you go, okay, if I can get 450 for this house, and I'm getting it for, let's say, I think to myself, the most I'll pay is 300 because I'm gonna put 350. I'm gonna put 50,000 into it. So I'm at 350, and I'm gonna sell for 450. Okay, it's a good deal. I'll make a bid of 300. Now, if someone already outbid me at 325, I'm 25,000 off. I'll go back and sharpen up the pencil again and go, okay, let's see. If I don't have to do this or do that, and maybe I'll save a penny here, a penny there. And if the market doesn't take a 10% dive, then I'm probably going to be okay. So I'll go ahead and make that bid. Let's say 327, 2,000 over to win that bid. If they come back again and they go 330, 335, I just simply walk away. It has to be non-emotional. Just It's either pencils out or it doesn't, and you walk away and you go look for the next one. Don't get emotionally involved.
Don't get emotionally attached to it. Just focus on the numbers. If the numbers make sense, great. So essentially, you even forecast like, hey, like you almost have like a cushion of like a 10% just in case the market drops, because that could happen, right? The market could drop at any given point, and if you're not,
especially the way things are right now, I mean, everything looks great, but it's so unstable. You don't know. You just don't know. So be safe. Look for that 10% from wherever the market is at now. Go 10% under. And of course, that's easy to do, but hard. Easy to think about, but hard to do when you're bidding against somebody. But you just have to have that discipline. If you can't do 10, do at least 5. And if you really, if there's just no room, and it's a property you feel comfortable with, and you want to say, okay, look, it's 550 all day long, then go for it. But it's not the right formula if you're doing your first one. Try to get it 5-10% under the current market value. That way you're safe. If you have to reduce the property 10% just to get it off your hands, sell it in one day, you have the liberty to do so, the ability. If you don't, if you're limited, then you're going to sit on the property longer, and you might end up losing, because when you sit on the property longer and property starts dropping, they drop fast. And so now you're going to have to drop it 20% instead of 10, and now you lost.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, good. I think that's pretty much it, Fernando. I think that people definitely will get value from this. I know that your time is extremely valuable, so I wanted to say thank you. I'll take you out to dinner sometime. But yeah,
bring me another flip property. That's all.
That's good. Any last words, Fernando, that you'd like to leave the people that are watching? Anything else? Any closing statements?
No, that's it. I mean, if anybody has a question, they know how to reach me. They can call me on my cell phone. don't mind helping anyone out that has questions.
Yeah.
And if anyone out there has any flip properties that they either want to partner up with or they want to sell me where they can keep the full commission, they can call me.
Where can they get it? What's your phone number, Fernando?
818-652-1223. 818-652-1223.
Fantastic. I want to thank everybody for watching this show. This is the Jose Luiz Morales Show, episode number 5. We're just looking to provide people with free knowledge, educate the community on things that people have questions on. So if you or anybody that you know knows of anybody that's looking to get into the flip business, watch this episode. Have them watch this. There's a lot of hidden gems in it that Fernando was generous enough to let us know. And if you ever have a deal that maybe you want to partner up with, maybe Fernando would be open to it. So you can reach him. Our phone number at the Morales Group is 805-228-4672, 805-228-4672. Thank you so much. Make it a great day, and we are done. Thank you, Fernando.
See you, man.